We travel back to the year 1999.
In Hypnospace Outlaw.
Play
or pass.
We were recently sent a code for a brand new game called Hypnospace Outlaw that we both played on Steam. Now this is a very different kind of game. Typically when we talk about video games, we usually talk about platformers or puzzle games or something like that. But this is an operating system simulator for an internet-like service that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, okay. So Hypnospace Outlaw. It's developed by Tendershoot, Michael Lash, That Which Is Media. It's a pretty small group of people came together to make this. What you described as, well, you said simulator.
Yeah.
So simulator is the best way to go about it. Hypnospace is, like you were starting to explain, it's like an internet. You get a headband, a Hypnospace headband. You wear it as you sleep.
Yep.
And then your mind is transported into a 1999 style internet where you have, actually it basically is like explaining the headband and everything makes it seem really crazy.
Yeah.
But it's just the net.
Yeah.
It's just the internet.
So like the first thing I thought of when I saw this kind of game concept coming together and I got a code, I was like, okay, it's going to be like Johnny Mnemonic or The Matrix. You're going to be floating around in virtual cities. No. This is like an alternate reality of 1999 where there's different political things going on, different cultures that are arising, and basically the concept is you're not getting some amazing VR experience, you're literally getting a desktop Windows experience in your head.
Yeah.
I love that idea. And the visuals on this game, folks, look, Adam and I were around back when these operating systems reigned supreme and they were like the thing that we had to use. And this thing gets it really correct. Like, there's a lot of stuff here.
I would have to say that this feels more like a Windows 95 than like an operating system that you'd really be using in the year 1999.
I agree.
Because of the story, it's like, whatever. It is what it is. It's trying to harken back to a time in the 90s where there was a bunch of GeoCities websites. Clip art was everywhere. If you're watching video on your computer, like I remember watching the Weezer, what was it, Buddy Holly video? Was that 95?
That's
Windows
right.
95?
Yep, came on the disc.
Yeah. And then it was like a really artifacty and stuff. And that's a lot of the video and stuff that you're getting here. You have...
Yeah. Okay, so let me make this nice and clear. The first 30 to 40 minutes of me playing this game, wow, I was just sucked in. Everything they could possibly do to make you feel like you're using a real operating system at the time, pinpoint accuracy. You've got a starting up, you can actually enter the BIOS of the computer at the very beginning. The boot screen's there. Now it's all fake. None of it is based off of real DOS or Windows or anything like that, but they get the minor details correct, like the compression algorithms from the audio and the video, the way that there's color in the world, in the game operating system and stuff. All those things are so accurate. Even the font is accurate. And what I'm talking about when it comes to graphics and design, I mean the 3D items you see in the game world when you're looking at like some kind of video sequence, or maybe like a sequence when you're moving around a building and stuff. And there's like a couple of those, or at least at the very beginning when you're going through like a training sequence, they have this really quick little animation that happens, and all of that feels kind of accurate to the time period. Now, I lean more to that being mid-90s than 1999, but it doesn't matter because I know exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to say that the internet that they had, this sleeping internet or whatever, kind of existed in a different path. So that's what this game really works towards. Now, it's not using a real web browser or anything like that, but you will have access to tons and tons of web pages that were made by people that look like they're using GeoCities.
Yeah, or like your old Angel Fire websites and whatnot. And it is the small intricacies like you were talking about that make this game a really interesting item, at least for the first part of playing the game. Yes. We'll get into that a little bit more later. You can play with the way that your mouse looks. You can play with your backgrounds. You can play with screensavers.
Desktop themes, sound effects, it's all there.
There's so many little minute touches that are great on the outset. But then you're digging into the web pages, right? There's plenty of web pages to be had. And the more that you dig into those, maybe that's when your the real feelings you might have for this game will start to blossom out. Okay, can we describe
what the gameplay actually is?
We should describe what the gameplay is. You are playing as an enforcer within the Hypnospace, right? You're like the police.
You
of
don't
Hypnospace.
have any regular edition of this game. You have the Enforcer edition, which means that you can find other people in the game, or sorry, on the online Hypnospace,
Yes.
and you can actually like go, oh, you're doing copyright infringement, or you're using some malicious software, or whatever it is, and you actually point people out in the game, and you charge them. You can flag their accounts every time.
YouTube's hero system.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Every time you do something like that, you get usable currency in the game world that you can spend by going to certain websites and stuff like that.
So you're
And
getting emailed cases from your higher ups. You are a police enforcer, and then you have a couple of other people. Like one of the creators is in touch with you, and some other folks as well. That are like, here's the case. This person has been harassing other people on Hypnospace. Go through the websites, find where the harassments are taking place, point them out, and then, like Shane said, you'll get paid. And when you close a case, you get paid even more.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you can spend that money to like further move through the story of the game, because there's a lot of things going on. Or you can buy like screensavers and music and stuff like that.
And this is kind of the idea of what the game's all about. It's there's an issue, you have to solve the issue or find solutions to the problem, or at least seek those people out. Now, that is basically the game. I would like to tell you right now that there's some bigger narrative and bigger story that's going on within the universe, but I'm going to be honest with you guys, I didn't complete the game. Adam, yourself?
I got less into the game than you, and a lot of people might say, "Oh my gosh, okay, you guys didn't complete the entire game. Your review failed."
I feel like I got to an end game state.
Yeah,
I
would say stick around and hear us out, because some of the reasons why we didn't complete the game are very much it's part of the review. Well, why we're talking right now.
I got to a part of the game that I believe, at least what narrative they were trying to say, I think I got to the end of that narrative. The problem is I got to an end game sequence and they showed me things happening, but I don't know if there's more game to be had there. But if it is, it's very, very, very boring. So here's how this kind of works out. As you're going through the game world, there's going to be little, I won't say narrative things that are building, but tiny things here and there that you start paying attention to. You have to read a lot. This is a game that's all about reading broken, bad web pages and stuff like that again and again and again. Maybe there's a virus or something that's infecting your computer. Then you have to go find a website that has the antivirus for that. You have to do lots of reading, lots of searching, and it feels incredibly repetitive to a point that it may actually not be fun for a majority of players out there, because unless you're really indoctrinated into the world they're trying to build, and believe me, I was for a longer time than Adam, there's just a point when you hit a wall and you don't know what to do, so you have to walk away from the game a little bit and think about what you're exploring, or you have to just really brute force and just find a billion different things to find a solution to something. Yeah,
so my eyes started glazing over very, very quickly. When I first began playing through the simulation, it was cool because I was seeing like all these old style GeoCities web pages. I was reading about, Mary, who has a collection of knickknacks and stuff, and you get all these charming web pages. One that really sticks out to me is Granny Cream's hot butter ice cream. There's like weird ads and cool like little songs and things, but very quickly you're going through and you're getting these little touches of charm. You're like, okay, this is interesting. I want to see more about what this whole world is about. There are shining moments of fun in there, but overall there's a lot of text and a lot of bland writing. Like if you are expecting people to read through every inch of every web page within this simulation, you have to make it really interesting. And besides a few standout moments, like Granny Cream's hot butter ice cream, which is amazing. You might be like me. Your eyes might glaze over. I got to a point where more and more web pages were being unlocked, and I was like, oh my God. It's a chore.
Yeah.
It's a chore for me. And I understand.
Yep.
Let me wrap it up.
Yep.
I understand, like, okay, you're an enforcer. You're the PD for this internet, this dream internet. It's supposed to be monotonous. I get that. Does it make it a great experience to play as a user? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to. I kept having to read over monotonous things over and over again.
And see, that's where my problem came into this. Now, personally, I'm actually okay with the poor writing all over the internet because it's like that's the internet, right? I'm used to that, and seeing that. I remember GeoCities back in the day and Angel Fire and people making really crappy websites and MySpace pages, and that's kind of what this is, and it feels very similar to that. So seeing like a 14-year-old make a website, I found it funny. Like that's exactly what I would have done at that age, making that kind of website, and I know because I did. And there's like a bunch of other things there where there's like this old person that doesn't know how to make his website, so there's like he's typing help. He writes help on things. It's hilarious.
Yeah. If you know what to do, please contact me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then I think like time passes in the game. When you get to the next day, his subscription to this thing lapsed, so his site is locked down, and it's just like that's amazing. Like these little tiny bits and pieces are there, and I found that stuff really did play out quite well. I appreciated that. I thought it was very well done, and those things really worked for me. My problem, though, was the driving force narrative doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't have drive to really keep you going.
Yeah, or at least there isn't enough of one. There is a bit of a story that plays out through your experiences with the simulation. And I was able to watch you get through most of it because, like I said, my eyes glazed over.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, it didn't seem like enough of a carrot on a stick for the user.
Yeah, I mean, there were elements of it where there's these really cool parts of the game that make you feel smart, like, okay, I got to figure out what this password is, but you don't know what the password is, so you have to go through all these different websites, and then you find something, you're like, okay, if people would make passwords this way, if I know this one person, what kind of password would they have made? And you break into the system that way. And there's these interesting pieces here that make you feel like you thought of that solution, and the game does not really give you any hints on that. It really pushes you along. But I think there's going to be a couple of issues here for gamers out there that may not be familiar with point-and-click based operating systems nearly as much as Adam and I was. So, I mean, I understand this kind of world.
Yeah.
I understand the kind of visual language you're trying to represent. And it goes to a point where I think there's going to be some people that feel like there's too many rules to what they're trying to do.
Sure.
When you're basically saying something's a copyright infringement or malicious software, or whatever, it's not just one button that you push. You have to choose what it probably is and click it that way. And there's going to be issues in the game where it even happens in the game world, in the narrative of the world, where you're going to point something is illegal, and you may not have actually done that, thinking that was going to solve anything, but you have to do it, and then the game world tells you, oh, well, okay, this isn't actually a bad thing, and we don't have a tool to say that that's a bad thing, but thanks for pointing it out anyway. And it sucks because those problems kind of make the game really hard to understand. For instance, there's going to be glitches that happen in the game, and you don't know if the glitches are the game itself having the glitches or the actual glitches are happening in the game world because they designed it. A very good example of this is I went to a website and the website didn't load. Now, this happened back when we were kids. It happens nowadays. Maybe you go to a website, the web page doesn't actually load properly. So what happened in this one was that I had to reload the page again, and I didn't think to do that. I just thought I went to a website that was just basically dead or whatever, which they've shown me a couple before that. And what actually happened was there was a narrative thing that happened on that page that just didn't load properly, so I missed out, and I ended up spending like 30 minutes going around the entire Hypnospace world trying to find that solution, and I just missed it the first time because there was a glitch.
And these walls that we're talking about, they very much go against what I feel like this game is trying to promote, which is like a feeling of connectivity in this internet, in this world. So when you hit walls, like your glitches problem, you'd feel like you'd be able to connect with someone through your email or something, but of course you can't, right? It's a one-way street.
Yes.
And every time that sort of thing happens, it's just like fourth wall breaking. You're like, oh, well, yeah, it feels like I'm part of this internet, but at the same time, it very much is. It's like it is like a point and click game from way back when. It's just a new resurfacing of one of those old point and click games.
Yeah, like in the universe, there's a chat program people are using to talk to each other. But Chit-chat. But you have the Enforcer edition of this operating system, so you can't install it, which is just a way to basically go, okay, you can't talk to people because we'd have to design chat sequences, and we don't want to do that. So unfortunately, that's not there. What I would have loved to have seen, though, is a way to look at people's chat logs And maybe there is a way to do that in the game, but I didn't see it. But I would have loved to see that so I could see what the active conversation is going on in the world. You see, the world feels static, even though you're there affecting it and closing things down. Once in a while, you'll see a reflection that you've done something and somebody will be upset because of what you've done. But I want that engagement. Like, I remember back in the old days, we would go on to IRC or we would go on to like any kind of chat room, and there would be an active conversation about what was going on somewhere else or a forum. And none of those things really existed here. So it felt like an encapsulated world where you couldn't see the raw effects of everything going on. Just a pre-recorded chat log of characters talking as you're causing events to happen,
yeah.
I think would have had a huge impact on the way that people understood what was going on in the game.
And I gotta say, despite there being several web pages like that you continuously unlock more and more throughout your experience, they all look they don't look the same per se, but all the assets are in the same vein, and that's not really like what the internet was like. Not every website looked like an Angel Fire or GeoCities website back in 1995 or 98 or whenever, you know. But this game very much does feel that way, and despite them going for sort of a grandioseness within internet, with a dream internet that many people are connected to, it doesn't feel like there are that many people on this internet. And like
I gotta say, like 30 or 40 right?
And they're all kind of sort of communicating with those other web pages as well. So it's as if it's like it feels like a small knit community.
It really does.
Like,
yeah.
oh, that guy sucks. Where you didn't really get that from like just random web pages way back in the day, because everyone was connected.
See, this feels more, and they I think in the narrative of the world, maybe they're trying to establish it more as a small thing, but I could have seen this as like a beta thing that existed, and there's a couple of key people around the world that were given access to this, and that's why it's so small.
That's not the case, though.
No, it's not.
This is supposed to be a widespread device that's being used by many people, and we know this because of part of the narrative where a lot of people are using this, and there might be some people that are getting a little bit unhealthy or maybe some problems with this.
And see, those narrative threads that I'm talking about, the unhealthiness, maybe something like that. Now, we're not going to spoil any of the story,
right.
but needless to say, I got very far. I got to a point in the game where it basically has this kind of Metroid feel to it, where you have to go back and re-explore things over and over again.
This is backtracking the game, right?
And it has that a lot. There's a lot of backtracking here, and I got to a point where I simply didn't want to play anymore because the amount of backtracking I would have to do, I wouldn't find fun, I wouldn't find interesting. And unlike normal backtracking in a game where you find something, that you solve something or you get a new ability or something like that, that isn't here. You're literally just backtracking to just check off a box kind of thing. And right there, all the narrative things, all the things that explode, and there are a lot of things that happen in the game world that kind of show things going in some specific direction. It doesn't feel like it had enough weight. It doesn't feel like it was worth the time invested. And honestly, I just don't feel like the story really could get you anywhere to make you want to play the game more than I already did.
Yeah, we compared this to another title that we had played. Was it last year? Return of Obra Dinn? Of the Obra Dinn. And it's a game that looks nothing like this.
Yes.
And plays not quite similarly, but the way that a narrative is kind of pushed through does revolve around backtracking. Yeah. And the Return of the Obra Dinn did their sort of backtracking. Again, that game suffered from some of its own issues, but I felt like the way that backtracking played into that, and you unraveled little story nuggets piece by piece, that kept you wondering, like, oh my gosh, so what made that happen?
Yeah,
I want to go back and see. And then it felt to me like that game promoted more, like there was more intrigue there to dig deeper. Here, I didn't feel that. I felt very disconnected from the plot.
You know, an issue I had with Obra Dinn and an issue I have with Hypnospace Outlaw is that they're both games where you're trying to solve things or to like find an answer.
Yeah, you're piecing things together. You're piecing together what they're giving you.
Yeah. Now, both games have the exact same problem where they give you the world to explore. It's not a line where they say, okay, find the problem here. It's, okay, there's a problem here, but the solution may be everywhere else. And with Hypnospace Outlaw, you're going to multiple pages looking all over the place. Like at one point, there's just a virus or whatever that's affecting certain pages. So you have to go through every page you can possibly go to without any reason, without any place to go to at all. And it sucks. And for many people, like, that took me the longest time to get through because I was like, I don't know where it could possibly be.
Here's the thing we gotta mention again. Remember, this is a simulation of a late '90s, mid to late '90s, like computer operating system. So you have to go back to different web pages and you scour through this internet. Meanwhile, it's slow loading purposely, like because it adds to the immersion, and it's delightful for the first 30 minutes or so, where you're like, oh, I remember this. You know, the way the mouse moves. The way that, you know, you can see all the big chunky pixels and stuff everywhere. But yeah, web pages take 10 seconds to load. Sometimes they're glitching, and it's charming for 30 minutes. But when you're trying to, like, you have to scour through like dozens upon dozens of web pages sometimes, and it just adds up.
Yeah.
All those 10 seconds add up.
I gotta say, if you're a fan of, I want to say, detective style games, you might find something fun to play here, but I don't think you're going to get a narrative, a satisfactory narrative of this. I don't think you're getting anything here that's going to be warranting your time invested. However, for people that are fans of older style operating systems and like of that era of online, you might have a lot of fun with this. But I just don't think many gamers out there are like us. And I think, like, we may be the core audience for this, and I don't think it worked well enough for us.
Yeah, it certainly didn't work so well for... Because I think you were way more into computers and operating systems way back in the day. I was less so. I did do quite a bit of gaming on PC, but I think that did translate into our playtime with this. You spent a far longer time engaged than I did. And, like, we're in our 30s, and we grew up with this tech, so it has me wondering, like, will younger people be engaged with this? People that don't have the nostalgia goggles for these sorts of operating systems, like people in their 20s, early 20s, let's say.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm not sure. Maybe they will be. Like, there is, we've spoken quite negatively, I think, of the game, but there is a lot of charm here to be had. And you can tell that the people that made this game really wanted to give you a certain experience, want to, you know, it's kooky and different. I've never seen a game like this, a simulation like this. So I laud the creators for that much. Like, this is so totally different. It's wild.
So here's the problem. Do you give this a play or a pass?
Yeah, it's like I want people to play to experience what this is, because I do feel like this is a worthwhile, like the shell, the makeup of this game is worth digging into. But as a title, as something with a narrative that you want to see through to the very end, I have to give it a pass, because I felt so jaded, so like I don't know, glassy-eyed after the first hour or so of jumping from webpage to webpage. Okay, the clip art's still there and it's cute and stuff, but like, yeah, it just couldn't grab me.
Honestly, those first 2 hours, I was hooked. I was really liking this. I was having a lot of fun with it. But after those first 2 hours, I figured out and I discovered that the game didn't give me any reward for the time invested or for the world it was trying to build. So because of that, I got to give this a pass. It just doesn't work out for me. And it's unfortunate too, because I think there's a lot of people out there that might really enjoy what this game is trying to offer, but I think it needed better writing. It needed a better structure of the world, like a villain or some reason for everything to be happening. And although there are things like that in the game, it doesn't feel as solidified as other games have presented that same kind of subject. We
needed tighter writing and like just more interesting sort of a more interested narrative, like on a huge scale, branching to everything else, but also in those tiny little specks where we saw a lot of love was put into the way that the operating system works and stuff. I don't feel like a lot of attention and love was given to each individual person and each web page. That got tiring to me very quickly. Maybe that's emulating what the real internet is like, but again, does that make it a great experience, a great game? In my opinion, not so much. But if this is relatively cheap, or for some reason you can get a chance to play this for free, like you have to at least see this thing in motion. Experience Granny Cream's Hot Butter Ice Cream, the song, because that's amazing.
There's a lot of really cool aspects of this thing. There's like videos that they made.
Yes.
We didn't even talk about Squishers, which was like this whole
they're
thing.
Pokemon style collecting.
There's
a
much
lot
to
of
see.
there's a lot of love here. So
Yeah.
it pains me to pass, but I have to overall.
If you're a big fan of indie games on the PC, this might be something you want to play. Outside of that, though, we just don't see a lot of people picking this one up.